to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S lifeline. VET S.O.S is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Parade Deck community. Today, we're sitting down with Lacey Craig, Senior Program Manager for Military and Partnership Recruiting at T-Mobile. Looking forward to learning about all the great support T-Mobile gives our veteran community and all the great work that Lacey's doing. Before we do that, we got to welcome Dr. Hira. Dr. Hira's back in the jump seat. How you doing today?
Doing great. Excited to learn about the programs.
Yeah, at this point, I think people are going to think that Keith quit on me. He's out.
Shoes to fill, filling in for him.
He's just taking a break. Had some things he had to take care of, so Keith will be back before you know it. And the good thing, though, is Dr. Hira is here to jump in and provide some much needed. Let's call it from the educational and the research side of the house. She has brought a lot to the table because that is her bread and butter. And one of our conversations we had on this show with Dr. Hira, just how much she gets into it and how much she knows is just fantastic. So love having you here, and so glad you're able to step up and help us out here. All right, so we'll jump right into it. We got Lacey, who is the Senior Program Manager, Military and Partnerships Recruiting at T-Mobile. She plays a pivotal role in driving employment focuses for veterans, military spouses, and active duty service members across the organization. In her role, she also is responsible for managing the partnership with Hire Our Heroes, Blue Star Families, as well as development of the programs that support our military community within and outside of T-Mobile. Beyond her responsibilities with T-Mobile, Lacey is a passionate advocate for the military community as the daughter of a 38-year serving veteran. Lacey is also the co-lead of T-Mobile's Southern California DEI Council and sits on the Board of Advisors for Veterans Legal Institute and is the co-chair of the Military Spouse Employment Advisory Council with Hiring Our Heroes. It sounds like you have a lot of free time to do a whole bunch of things, Lacey.
But you make the time for what's important is what I always say, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you. So how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? How's everybody else doing?
We're doing well.
Good. I'm super excited to be here to talk to you guys today. I know it's been a long time coming. I can't believe it's already been last year since we first connected and talked about this.
Yeah, so we met at the MIC last year, and we're less than 6 months out from the MIC this year. But so glad you were able to get on here and sit down with us. This is going to be a great conversation. But before we get into what T-Mobile's doing and what your role is there, what led you to want to work with the military and veterans and things like that through your work with T-Mobile?
Yeah, I'll try to simplify this story as much as possible because this work actually started with me before T-Mobile. So I was with a previous employer, and I think what's good to call out is that this isn't something that everybody always knows that they want to do or knows where to start, because even anybody listening here, it's like, it's not natural for everybody, and not everybody is like, hey, I'm from a military family or I'm a veteran, so I'm going to do this thing. And for me, I spent almost my entire life in a military family as a dependent when my dad served for 38 years. But I think because he had served before I was born and then pretty much my whole life, it was just normal. So I didn't know any different. And so when I became an adult and started working in the civilian sector for different corporations, we always lived near military bases, and I always had employees that were either veterans or military spouses, but it was normal to me. Like, that wasn't anything different because that's something that I had experienced my entire life. And it wasn't until my dad transitioned the first time, because he thought it would be cool to do it twice. So after he transitioned the first time, and I really saw how much of a struggle it was for him to reacclimate into civilian life and transition into a role, probably why he reenlisted for another 18 years. But I think for me, that's when it really clicked that there's a disconnect at some point post-service, or even, as the service members are transitioning, that I was in an opportunity to help with. So I started volunteering. I was working for a different corporation at the time, and I was a district manager. And so I noticed I had a lot of veterans and military spouses working for me, and I just started volunteering at different organizations. So my dad was in National Guard at the time, so I volunteered with ESGR. I would go to the base, help the reservists with like resumes, how to find a job while they were still, in service. And then that kind of branched out. I got connected with a whole bunch of other VSOs, veteran service organizations, and I would just start volunteering my time. I would go and talk to them about how to apply, how to civilianize your resume, how to translate your skills, how to even interview, and how to, make yourself marketable outside of your military experience, because you've done all the things. You just need to figure out how to put it on paper. And so I think for me, it was just the more time that I spent, volunteering, I thought, man, we got to bring this to work. Like there's definitely some opportunity here. So, well, anybody can see on my LinkedIn, but I was with Starbucks at the time. So, Starbucks had an opportunity where we actually built our first, oh gosh, what was it called there? At T-Mobile, it's the Veterans and Allies Network, but our ERG basically for veterans and allies. And so I was a part of establishing that within Southern California, opening military family stores, and really trying to establish the military community. And then we also piloted the military fellowship program, which allows us to have the opportunity for corporate transitioning service members and military spouses to get that employment experience before they transition out. And so that's where it kind of started, was my passion project. And then I thought, if I'm in a position of influence where I can bring this to work and actually make a difference, I'm doing it. So, I did a lot of work there, but I will tell you the pivotal moment for me was coming to T-Mobile, because I have truly been able to be an entrepreneur inside this organization where I've been able to influence program and policy change to actually retain the veterans and military spouses. Because as much as we talk about employment, retention is more important in my opinion, because landing the job is great, but keeping the job is more important. And how do we measure that? And how do we make it a place where veterans and military spouses want to stay and feel included and create that community? So that's the short version of how I kind of got started in this. So I still, volunteer a lot of my time to veteran service organizations, because I think you have to stay relevant in the current state of what the candidates are experiencing in order to bring that change within the corporation.
Fantastic. That's quite the journey, and 38 years, that doesn't even compute in my head. Like, I was
Right?
ready at 20, so
I know, he thought he was too, right? And then he decided it would be cool to do it some more.
woo, God bless him. So
Right.
that's just think, Dr. Harry, your husband's still on active duty. You might not even be at the halfway point if you want
I
to go
know.
38
I
years.
dread. You say 38. I'm like, oh God, 38 years. Yeah, that might be us. So good for you and the family for surviving that too. Because I mean, that's a lot on the family side. And as you were talking, just in your introduction, I'm like, I love the aspects of including the family in the efforts you're doing, because as a dependent, you understand the upheaval, the challenges and barriers of employability on the family side as well. So I think that's wonderful. So I guess expanding on that, what is T-Mobile doing in terms of their initiatives to support the military family?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, do we have only 30 minutes? So I think that what's really important, I know that this is about, this podcast specifically is about transition, but military spouses are a critical part in that too. And so a lot of what we do is coupled with both the military spouse outreach, but then also the transitioning service member. So a couple things. 3 years ago, we started really emphasizing and focusing on military spouse employment. A couple reasons why I felt like that was important to establish once I came to T-Mobile is because a lot of civilians and organizations do not realize that the best thing you could do for a transitioning service member is employ their spouse. Because at that point in time, the transitioning service member can take their time to transition and not to jump into the first job that they get offered because they're desperate, because they have to pay the bills, because their spouse may not have been able to retain employment for an extended period of time, or they just PCS'd or moved, for the last time after transition. And so when you give the spouse a job, you allow the transitioning service member to actually work on upskilling, maybe certifications that they need to get, or focusing on zeroing in how their skills in the military translate into jobs that they really want to do, and discovering and taking that time to really understand what it is that they want. That's why over 30% of transitioning service members leave their first job in the first year that they transition, because they don't know what they want to do sometimes, and they're forced into a job. So we focus a lot on both military spouse and transitioning service member and veteran hiring. We do that through a couple of the things that Sean mentioned. So partnerships with a lot of external organizations are critical, because they're really creating the pipeline for those candidates, but they have phenomenal candidate readiness programs. So Hiring Our Heroes specifically, they do Amplifies. They have a new resume genius system that you can go in, and it's like AI enabled. So you don't even have to figure out how to translate your experience anymore. It'll do it for you. And so we partner with those organizations, so then we can come in and talk about different job opportunities, what you did, and what that title might look like here, because it's confusing even for someone that works here to understand what's a principal engineer. I talked to someone the other day about a principal program manager. They go, well, I don't have the principal title. I'm like, but that just means you have to have that level of experience. You don't have to have a principal title. So I think for us working with those veteran service organizations, that's critical, because it really gets us in front of that population to help enable them to make the best career choice. And we don't do it with the, intention of obviously hiring, or strings attached, of hiring every single person, but more so, how can we create this community where we can connect you to different employers that we work with? So we work very collaboratively. I'm part of a coalition of employers where we meet every month and we talk about what's going on. So you're struggling with return to office, you're struggling with this policy. Hey, how can we help each other write this policy to kind of break down some of these barriers? So those are some other things that we're doing. T-Mobile has some fantastic benefits. So starting day one, if you're active duty, you're already able to take advantage of those military leave benefits your first day. So you don't have to be here 90 days, all the things. Also pretty awesome, we have a portable work location policy for military spouses that went into effect last year. So when the job can be accommodated, we can do remote. We can do like different business office locations, so military spouses can take their job with them. And then also, or active duty. So we have reservists that have had to exercise that, if they get orders to PCS somewhere else. So those are a couple things. And then almost a year ago, it'll be a year ago this month, we put into effect PCS paid benefit. So now if you PCS, you get paid 40 plus hours of time off. So you do not have to take vacation pay. You don't have to be unpaid. And it's crazy because, I didn't think about that when I proposed the benefit to the senior leadership team and kind of brought it to life. I never thought about this scenario, but I had a military spouse that needed to transfer from one of our call centers to a remote job. I didn't realize that some of these jobs have an attendance policy. And so when military spouses PCS, and let's say they have vacation pay or whatever, or they take that time off, we all know PCSing doesn't always go like as smooth as possible, as smooth as you think. So in this case, this employee needed an extra week. Well, had she not had that benefit, she might have been, I'm hoping not, but she might have been held accountable for not meeting the attendance policy because she would have missed a whole nother week of work, not having the time off, all of these things. Now, I want to just disclose, I don't think that would have happened in this case, but I'm just saying because of this policy, she was able to get paid for that time and not worry about that. So, I think those are really critical things that we're doing for this community. We do resume set workshops, all of those things. We established an internal mentorship program called VAST, so the Veterans and Allies Succeeding Together. So it's through our mentor match program. So we partner up veterans, military spouses with 2 mentors internally. So one that's a veteran or military spouse, one that's not, and they're from different lines of business so that they can mentor that veteran military spouse. It's a 6-month structured program that they go through. So we're doing a lot of things like that. Also our Veterans and Allies Network. So we do a lot with our Veterans and Allies Network to stay involved in the community. So we do a lot with Mission Continues, Project Recover. We're participating in Carry the Load this month. We do a lot with the Memorial Day wreath laying at different cemeteries across the country. I'm missing a ton, but those are just some of the things. I told you we don't have enough time to talk about all the things. Yes. But I think those are the critical things, and I always say in these platforms, like, if T-Mobile's not your jam or you don't find a job with us, just be aware that there are employers that do these things, and kind of think about, as we're talking about some of these things available, what's important to you. And you might not even know that there are employers that do certain things like this.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. One, all these programs you're talking about, are they open to just transitioning service members and spouses, or are they also open to veteran and veteran spouses?
Yeah, great question. Both, all of the above. Okay. So they're open to veterans, veteran spouses. We don't differentiate. So really,
God
when
bless you for that.
Yeah, I mean, so when you self-ID, you self-ID as, have you previously served in the I am paraphrasing, in the United States Armed Forces, or has your spouse? We don't differentiate between current, past, any of the things, because there are, I think in our opinion, we kind of see it as, why should the veteran spouse and veteran get punished for finally landing somewhere or finally getting a job after moving and all of the things? Why should they not be considered for the same opportunities? Because they're in the same position. They've done all the things.
Well, absolutely. And the follow-up to that is, what about those who say, well, I don't know anything about cell phones or sales or whatever, it automatically disqualifying themselves from potential careers and what have you. So, how do you guys approach that that standpoint? What would you say to someone who's saying something like that?
Yeah, I think this question's so funny, Sean, because I was totally that person. So my daughter's 20, and thank goodness for her. She was, she was 16 when I started working here. So she was at the age where I was like, girl, I don't even know how to operate my iPhone, and I'm going to go work. I mean, I came from a coffee company, and I'm going to go work for a telecommunications company. I'm like, I don't even know. I didn't know you could even retrieve old photos. I didn't know how to use my phone. And so I was that person. I was like, I am not a technology person. And what I can tell you is that T-Mobile has such a cool training program where we will teach you all of those things. So regardless of the role that you're coming into, you're going to have a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks of intense onboard training. And even for me, coming into a role in HR, this is the first company I've ever come into that I haven't worked my way up into this role, which I guess brings another point. You don't have to do that here. So you can come in as a manager, you can come in as an individual contributor in a more senior level. You don't have to start at the bottom. I get that question a lot too, but you don't have to have experience in technology. Some of the roles do prefer experience in telecommunications or technology, and it will specify that. And you're talking like senior level, probably business sales, federal sales, more technical roles. Those are going to require some experience. But again, it'll say technical experience or preferred experience with a telecommunications or technology-based company. But that's very, very few jobs. Most of our jobs, we will teach you those things. And for me, I actually spent 2 weeks in the stores coming into my job, because I'm like, I got to know all the things. I got to figure out my phone. I cannot rely on my teenager to teach me how to use this phone. So you have the opportunity to spend time in the field. We really encourage that. If you get hired into a corporate role, the stores love it. Like, they have training teams and training stores that you can go spend the time with to learn about that stuff.
That's fantastic. And sounds like it leads to a great culture, Dr. Here. What do you think?
I do. And, I think when you were talking earlier about the retention piece and what you've built in to support that retention is definitely there. When you were talking about that leave opportunity, I was like, holy smokes, imagine if more companies did that. I know that's been one of the biggest headaches for us every time we moved was, okay, I'm leaving my job. Now I got to go find another one, and I don't know when I'm going to start, and I'm not going to have any leave banked at the new place, so I can't start it till we're settled. And, it's this headache, and it's all these little pieces. So, the forethought on you all to really think about, okay, what are the different hiccups along the way, the barriers to interruptions and the pieces. And I think what you shared too about, the emphasis on the spouse during the transition, because I agree. I've worked with a lot of vets who have said, I had to get a job the second I left. I was the breadwinner of the family. I was going to continue. My spouse was concerned they didn't have their education done. They didn't have this. Their resume was as broken as anything because of all of our moves. And they felt they had to be the one to go get the job. And it kind of disrupted a lot of things for both family members. In particular, also getting their VA healthcare established, because that takes a long time. And so that aspect of, we want to help spouses be that one who's employed so that the person can focus on the transition and get settled and get what they need taken care of is a huge thing. I've told my husband, 9 months minimum, you don't get to do anything after you get out. I need you to get everything done, right? And we're in a privileged place to do that, but a lot of families aren't. So that the fact that T-Mobile said, let's make sure the transitioning service member and the spouse are employed, I very rarely have heard that when talking with a lot of different employers. So I think that's a very impactful thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fantastic. And I love hearing about organizations like this, because organizational culture to me is huge. And it's a lot of my background in education, what I tried to do in the units I was in the military. Some would say I did with success, and some will say I didn't. But, that's a whole different conversation and story. But the fact that T-Mobile is putting such an emphasis on it, I just absolutely love it. So what other things, or are there things on the horizon that, T-Mobile's looking to do as it pertains to the veteran community?
Yeah, so I think, what's great is we had a veteran and military spouse hiring goal that we hit back in 2023. And what I love is that at that point in time, it wasn't like, cool, that we hit that goal, let's move on. It was, okay, what can we do next? How can we continue to amplify these efforts? And a lot of the things I've talked about have come since then. And so I think for us, it's how do we continue to understand and lean into what are some of the things that the veteran and transitioning service member and military spouses are struggling with. Right now, it's a lot within the federal space. So we're doing a lot. We're pivoting a lot within how to help maybe federal workers that are veterans translate their resume into civilian verbiage. So we just did a workshop with Hiring Our Heroes this week. We're doing a couple more. So I think, what's on the horizon is continuing to understand as things continue to shift, how do we react to that to continue to support this community? But we're continuing to have that be a focus, partner with organizations that are aligned with that. So we're doing a lot more work with 4Block. So we are hosting. So in the future, we're going to be hosting more in-person cohorts. We recently did our first trek with the Honor Foundation. We're going to see a lot more of that, because I do think that there is a lot of benefit for the transitioning service members to see what the culture in the environment's like before they just apply for the job and talk to people, work on that networking. I cannot emphasize networking enough. I mean, networking is critical, like to understanding even what you want and thinking about what that looks like. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that, continued engagement in hiring events, all of the things that we're doing to support the military spouses. And then also we're continuing to amplify we're a SkillBridge employer as of this year, which is very exciting. That's something we did not do in the past. And the corporate and military spouse fellowship program. We are building that into different and new teams. So, we're going to see a lot more participation from different lines of business supporting the transitioning service member and military spouse as part of that workforce planning goals. So, if they have headcount next quarter, we're bringing a fellow on today. So we have our first fellow starting in our T-Mobile for government teams on Monday and our cybersecurity team on Monday. And we've never had fellows in either of those teams before. So I think we're going to continue to explore how we can utilize some of these programs and get creative with how we can just support where the veteran and military families are today, and then kind of flex as that changes as things continue to evolve this year.
Sounds like a fantastic proactive approach there, Doctor, here, and definitely an organization tailor-made for the veteran community.
Exactly. And I was about to ask about SkillBridge because I hadn't heard you bring it up, and then you hit it, because I was going to say, like, what about internship opportunities or other pieces? So that's great to hear that, you're doing the SkillBridge as well. Again, that introduction to what is the company, what are the different roles within it, where could you see yourself? I think that's great. Are there internships for dependents?
So I'm glad you asked that, because I almost forgot to talk about the internship piece. So the internships are primarily aimed for students, obviously at the junior or senior level, but we also extend it to military spouses and transitioning service members that maybe have gotten a degree or in the process of a certification within that year. So they're eligible to apply for an internship. We have summer internships. They're starting this month and they go through August. So sometimes they start in May, sometimes they start in June. Just depends on the team. But applications will start opening up again for next year, like October timeframe. But military service, and let's say you transition out, you're getting that certification, you're working on that degree, that counts to be eligible to apply for that internship too.
Awesome. That's fabulous. Again, as you talked about, kind of that long pipeline of transition. So I was like, oh, is there internship? A lot of people are going to school and doing that thing, and they're not ready for the full employment, but they want to dabble. So, golly gee, time is flying. But before we wrap up, best way to either connect with you or, again, the military programs through T-Mobile, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, a couple things. So we have a military landing page that has more information about all of the benefits and programs that I talked about today. We also, I host office hours every Tuesday. So if you're interested in just learning more, it's your safe place to ask all the things. So just for transparency, I'm not a recruiter. So I don't have headcount requirements or recs that I'm trying to fill. There's no strings attached with conversations with me. I'm just trying to find candidates the right avenue. And so if you join those office hours, I can talk to you about, maybe different career options, different jobs, locations. So you'll find that on our landing page if you go there. And then also connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'm really good at responding within like 24 hours to a week at times, because sometimes when I do events, I'll have like 100 messages and I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, just maybe be a little more patient, because sometimes the lead time is a little longer.
That's fair. That is more than all right. Well, Lacey, thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the VET S.O.S family, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. VET S.O.S is growing and spreading its wings. You can follow us on all social media platforms. Make sure to check out all 3 of the shows and follow and subscribe on whatever platform you prefer for your podcast. We are also on YouTube, Reach Across America Radio, and the Parade Deck. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.